Yo, welcome to NS9LIVE. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me, we have Jim. We have Tyler. Tyler's on one tonight. I don't know what is going on with you, but what's up, everyone?
How we doing?
I'm doing good. We had a concert by Tyler.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Tyler was jamming out.
Brittany tried to slander my guy, Justin Timberlake, and I'm just supporting him. That's all.
No JT slander allowed.
We don't allow that. Not around here. Not in these parts.
But you got to be nice to Brittany too. She's been through a lot.
Yeah, Justin was nice to her in 2021 when he said the conservatorship should end, and she just trashed him. So, like, we got to stand.
I can't wait for the NSYNC album and tour.
Like anything he
Which
does,
is basically Justin Timberlake featuring NSYNC, I feel.
JT's the guy. He's the dude. I stand in solidarity.
In solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement.
Anyways.
I said solidarity, but it's cool. Like, whatever.
Yeah,
what I was saying before the show, if nobody caught it, was Jim usually starts this thing off by, what are we talking about? We didn't get that tonight because he couldn't figure out a computer.
Yeah, Jim couldn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I messed up the login. That's my bad. I mean, I'll own up to it. That was my bad.
Great show.
I'm the reason why.
As always.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Well, we already have people commenting. I hear a bunch of yeses. I was looking at this and like, we didn't say anything. And why are they saying yes? But like the title of the show, I guess. Can the 2024 Pirates replicate the 2023 Diamondbacks? That's what the show is going to be about. So I guess I understand the comments now, everyone. So thank you. But I don't know, guys. Again, we're a Pittsburgh Pirates show. There's not a whole lot to talk about with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But we've been talking about the MLB playoffs here and there. And it's the Rangers versus the Diamondbacks. Let's just start there. Who is predicting this?
Yeah, I don't think anybody was predicting this. This is a World Series of two teams that lost 100 games. Hey, you know what? I didn't make whatever. Austin says Jim should retire like Mad Dog after saying the Snakes won't win. I didn't say they won't win. I said that they probably won't. I think that's what I said. And I didn't make any outlandish statements about the whole thing. Here we are. Rangers, Diamondbacks. Both teams lost 100 games in 2021. Made some strides last year, and here they are, both teams in the World Series. No one I think expected this particular matchup.
No.
Jesus, Tyler.
Well,
you had so much energy coming into the show. What is going on?
I'm thinking of how to put it.
That's true. He was dancing around. He was singing. He was actually like legit singing. And now he can't even say anything. Yeah.
No, I was thinking of a polite way to put it, that the Diamondbacks, I don't know if you guys are on the same page as me here, but I don't think they're a good baseball team. Like, in general, I just don't think they're any good. You look at their rotation, it's not good. They got Corbin Carroll and a couple guys that played pretty well, but to picture them in the World Series, I don't know if anybody ever could have predicted it, and whoever did is probably cashing out that bet right now. I don't know how they did it. Honestly, that's really what it is to me. I don't know how they did, and we'll get to it later here in the show, but it kind of seems like a lot of catching lightning in a bottle.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing we talked about was the new playoff format. I mean, there's more teams in there. We discussed about the playoffs last week and, what we could see if there's going to be more teams. And I think what this World Series demonstrates is, I mean, I guess however you want to look at it, but the issue with allowing more teams, like the Diamondbacks aren't really that great of a team, like you mentioned, Tyler. The Dodgers, the Braves, we're talking about like these super teams that were really, really good. And it's the Diamondbacks. They beat the Phillies, who are actually really, really good, playing really, really good this postseason. And so I guess like as the title here states and stuff, like this gives hope to Pirate fans because, like you said, I feel as if they're good enough. They're good enough to get into the playoffs, barely. And it's like I don't know if this caught like they got hot at the right time, but they just have enough. Like when we talk about with the playoffs, you don't need the depth like you do in the regular season. I mean, they have two guys that are pitching really good. Ironically, one of them is not Zach Allen. They have two really good pitchers. They have a really good bullpen, and the hitting's coming alive for the most part.
Yeah, I mean it's a solid team, especially offensively. You look at them and like no one jumps out at you, but then you dig deeper, right? And I mean Corbin Carroll is a pretty known commodity now. I know he's a rookie, but he had an outstanding rookie season. 25 homers, 54 stolen bases. He ended up with a 6.0 Fangraphs WAR. So the dude's a stud.
He was
and then
the
you
first
look
rookie
at
ever go 25-52, wasn't he?
I think wasn't he the first? Well, definitely the first rookie ever. Yeah, like no doubt, for sure. But then you look kind of up and down their lineup. Ketel Marte is just a really good, solid baseball player all around. Like he's been good for a while now. He was good again this year. Christian Walker, again, just a solid baseball player. You've got a young shortstop in Perdomo who kind of found his way this year. Lourdes Gurriel, he's a professional hitter, and then you look at the catcher position, Gabby Moreno, another really young, really good player, especially defensively, great defensive catcher. And he's come up with some timely hits throughout the postseason. So, you kind of look at the lineup and they've got a pretty good core of guys there. What's been kind of carrying the torch though this postseason, I feel like, is like you mentioned that pitching. Zach Allen hasn't even been that good, but Merrill Kelly has been excellent. Brandon Pfaadt has been really good.
Yes, he
And the
has.
bullpen has just been shut down, like incredible. I mean, I was looking at the Diamondback stats just a little bit ago. They only had 3 pitchers this entire season even throw 100 innings. They had 2 guys on their entire team, pitchers with a WAR over 2. So it's like it's just kind of they just piece together a bunch of dudes and they're just all pitching really well right now.
So I guess I have a question for you guys off of that. Do you guys feel that what the Diamondbacks have done is good for us as Pirates fans?
Explain that a little bit further.
I know where you're going with it.
Where I'm going with it is that
No, I know. I think I know where you're going with it.
but
yeah.
just for the audience to expand a little bit, do you think that it gives a little hope to Pirates fans that you can do it this way? And we've seen it kind of done before. I think the Royals were a little bit similar, but I don't think they were as kind of mediocre as the Diamondbacks are. Do you think this gives a little bit of a glimmer of hope to the Pirates?
Well, that I think absolutely it does.
And do you think that it's good for the Pirates that the Diamondbacks are in the World Series now?
I hate this.
Maybe not good for the Pirates. I'm sorry. Is it good as a Pirates fan to watch the Diamondbacks? Should it give you hope as a Pirates fan?
So depending on what your question is, the answer
I've got
is yes or
Fausto.
no. So,
Yeah.
as a Pirates fan, you've got to look at this Diamondbacks team, and absolutely, you look at them and you say, this gives me hope for next year, right? This Diamondbacks team went what 84 and 78.
Yeah.
You can totally see a path to 84 and 78 next year as a Pirates fan. I think, like, if you don't even have to squint that hard, and you can probably see it. So, does it give you hope? Yes. Is it good for the Pirates that the Diamondbacks are in the World Series right now? I guess I would have to say no, it's not, because one, it means that this Diamondbacks team, who has a lot of really young players who are going to be back next year, and they're going to be better, and they're going to be calling up Jordan Lawler also shortly next year, and he's just going to make their team even better. So is this good for Pirates fans that the Diamondbacks are in the World Series? Probably not, because the Diamondbacks are now going to be a team you're going to have to play. But I think you're digging a little bit deeper here on the topic of, is it good for the Pirates and really baseball in general that a team with 84 wins makes the World Series? I think that's kind of more
I
your
think
question.
that's the big thing, though, is, and now that I think about it, because I'm a brain dead moron, is it good for baseball in general? Because I don't think it is.
I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, probably not, because, you don't want teams shooting for 84 wins. You want teams to be shooting for a better season. But again, this is what they asked for. Like, when you expand the playoffs and you let these teams in who aren't that great, like, you're going to end up with stuff like this. And it's not like this is anything new either. Like, you look at, what was it, 2006, the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series, and they were 83 and 79 or something like that. So, like, this isn't something that's like unique to this season. We've seen teams that are like this in the playoffs before. I think the Giants, on a couple of their World Series runs, had similar records to this. So, like, I don't think this is a detriment to the sport in any way, because this isn't anything new. This has been happening for a long time. This has been happening since the 1987 Twins.
Jim the historian all of a sudden. So part of this goes down with our conversation we've had, though, like, built for the playoffs opposed to built like for the regular season, And I think by no means do I look at the Diamondbacks and say they're built for the playoffs, but I think they're better in this type of a format than a regular season, right? Like Tyler said, you look at the pitching staff, there's not a whole lot of depth. There's like two guys, but all you need in the playoffs is two guys, and that's what they have. And they've been pitching very, very, very good, and that bullpen. And, Tyler brought up the Kansas City Royals. I mean, it was that bullpen that just carried them for the most part. Like, they built that formula that was emulated time and time again. You have to shut down bullpen, and those starters become better. So I just kind of hate the whole question, like, is this good for baseball and all of that? Because ultimately, nothing's going to change. Like, nothing has changed. Nothing's going to change. Like, Bob Nutting isn't going to operate differently if the Diamondbacks didn't get in there. He's going to operate the same. That's why the Pirates have been in this situation for 30 plus years. Like look at every team. Like, the rules aren't changing the way teams really strategize for the most part. Like, maybe here and there, but I think that's just too overrated. Like, the Diamondbacks have now ruined baseball because of the World Series. So all the teams think they can just be at 84 wins. I mean, I do think adding more teams, most teams see all you have to do is get in there, right, and be hot or whatever. Like, there's more action maybe the trade deadline than there is in the offseason. Like, that part I get. But I don't look at it and say, well, it's bad for the Pirates because now Bob Nutting's not going to spend money, because he was going to.
Right.
So I get that part. But we had the conversation before about GMs talking about we got to win 84 games and we're in a good spot. So in terms of just as baseball fans in general, I know I've been on board of expanding the playoffs just because I felt like it would be better for myself as a Pirates fan. And I think you are correct there, Donardo, in saying that Bob Nutting's not going to change. We all know that. He's going to spend up to whatever his limit is that year. But does it change the GM's perspective there, where we're going to continue this kick the can down the road and stay the course, try to just stay competitive as long as humanly possible instead of actually trying to go win a World Series? Does this change GM's mindset in that way?
Maybe just the way they'll operate. And I think that's what I'm coming down to. I think the offseason is kind of looked at as, let's be able to last. Let's make sure we can get to 84 wins. And then once the trade deadline comes, then you kind of go, depending who you are, all in. I mean, like, we haven't talked on the opposite end. Another team that did this differently. They also lost 100 games 2 years ago, but they spent money. But also look what the Rangers did at the deadline. So I think that could be is like what you're looking at. Like I think the offseason is more of, let's make sure we're good. Let's make sure we're good. And I think you have to look at the landscape of your division. If you're in a division, which is again funny. I mean, the Diamondbacks were looking very much on the outside in. When you look at the Dodgers and the Padres, you're like, okay, we ain't making it this year. And now you're in the World Series.
Right.
But like, I feel like, a lot's based on, your division in that sense, but like, you have to be good enough. And then once the deadline comes, you kind of assess, and that's where you go on. But again, like, you're building for the playoffs. Like, you have to have 2 studs.
But I don't even know. Like, can you argue the Diamondbacks even did that? Like, they just coasted.
They didn't.
Here.
They didn't.
They coasted here.
They relied heavily on their bullpen this entire postseason. I mean, Zach Gallen had a good series in Milwaukee. Merrill Kelly's been outstanding the entire postseason. So I think you can look at him and say he's been really good. Brandon Pfaadt hasn't had the length that the other guys have had, but he's given 4 to 5 good innings each time out. And then with the way that the bullpen's pitching, that's all you need. Like, if Pfaadt's giving you 4 or 5 good innings and the bullpen's coming in and giving you 4 or 5 scoreless, you're going to win. And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they definitely did it a different way. Like, you look at the Phillies, and the Phillies were getting innings out of Wheeler and Nola. And then, Nola blew up in Game 6. And that's kind of when things went south, because their bullpen wasn't really their strength throughout this whole thing. It was more of a weakness. Their strength was the length and the dominance that their 2 really good starting pitchers gave them. And then they did have the third with Ranger Suarez also having a really good postseason. So, yeah, I think it's just there's different ways to do it. The Diamondbacks did it bullpen heavy. The Phillies were relying more on their starters. And at the end of the day, the Diamondbacks bullpen was better than the Philly starters.
Playoff baseball is wild, man.
It's so different,
it's so
right?
good.
It's so different because they were talking about the game last night too, and it's really just you're looking at every decision you make. The regular season, you're doing it on like a macro level, right? Like, you're not bunting that much. You're doing the things that like analytics and the numbers are telling you to do. Whereas with the postseason, like every pitch, every run, every at bat is so important that it's like sometimes you just got to go with your gut on things. And yeah, you're bunting more, you're stealing more, or maybe you're not even stealing as much really in the postseason because you're not wanting to give up outs, but you're making pitching changes a lot sooner. You've got quicker hooks. Yeah, it's a different game. Like, the postseason is a completely different game than the regular season.
And it's really where that manager makes their money.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's where you become a legit manager.
I mean, you look at Bruce Bochy. I mean, Bruce Bochy carved himself out a really, really good career.
Yeah.
Just an excellent postseason manager that he's shown to be. I think he's undefeated in Game 7s now. It's like 4-0 in Game 7s, 5-0.
Yeah, but what you were saying there, Jim, was absolutely correct. It's just a feel thing in the postseason. And some guys have it, some don't. And Terry Lavillo obviously has figured out how to do it.
I think another thing with Terry Lavillo, since you mentioned him, and we're tying this all back to the Pirates, right? Kind of you got to give the Diamondback, like the Diamondbacks stuck with him, right? Like they hired him. He put together a couple, 3, decent seasons, made the playoffs year 1. He won 82 games in year 2. He won 85 games in year 3. Then the rebuilding started, right? You had 25 wins in the 60 game series season of 2020. They bottomed out in 2021, 110 losses. Got better last year, 74 wins. So like they stuck with them, and I think it's just a way to show that like that continuity. I think the continuity means something, and like sticking with the guy. I think it's an argument to at least, I mean, if it's the right guy, and I think if you think Derek Shelton's the right guy, you stick with him. I think the Pirates think he's the right guy, but you look at somebody like Lovullo, and he's definitely someone who could have been let go last year or the year before, but he wasn't. And now look at him; he's in the World Series.
Yeah, and the other part with Lovullo is like they gave him some veteran crap. Like the Diamondbacks, to their credit, did try to compete within the past couple years, and they signed some guys, and he's the guy, and Greinke, and like there's a good bit of guys that they tried to spend money on, and it just didn't work out. But they did ride with them. It's worked out, but it also does help, though, Jim, whenever your first year, you're a competitive team. So maybe not the same situation, but.
No, you're right. But let's kind of get into that, because I think the Diamondbacks, people look and they say, they lost 110 games in 2021. And it's like, oh, well, the Pirates can do what the Diamondbacks did. The Diamondbacks didn't do what the Pirates did. They didn't tank. Now, you look at 110 losses and you're like, this team was bad, right? And they were bad. That team wasn't supposed to be that bad. That team was supposedly Fangraphs preseason projections had that team winning 74 games, right? They just failed miserably. You're not tanking if you just signed Madison Bumgarner to a 3-year, $60+ million contract,
right?
And so we're talking about different things. The Diamondbacks did a really, really good job of building this team that they have. The young guys on it, we talk about Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll, not a super, he was a first-round pick, but Corbin Carroll was a 16th overall pick in 2019. He was somebody they scouted and developed. Alec Thomas, same thing. Another young guy that wasn't a top pick, scouted, developed. Gabby Moreno, they went out and they acquired him. Lourdes Gurriel, they went out and got him. Ketel Marte, another not a homegrown guy. They've had him for a while now, but they went out and they got him. So it's a really, really well-constructed team, and they just hit. They hit on a lot of those moves, and I think like when you hit on that many moves, you're gonna be good. And this is a team that, like, this isn't a 1-year wonder. Like, the Diamondbacks should be pretty good for a while. These are all young guys. They're all coming back next year. And I mentioned earlier with Jordan Lawler coming, like, they're just going to get better. They're adding better players to this team. And then behind him, you've got, Drew Jones. So like, they've got talent just stacked, ready to come up. Those 2 years where they did, quote unquote, bottom out, and they got those high picks, they didn't even use them this year. They're in the World Series. Those guys aren't even here. But yeah, just a really, really good team. And I think it also shows, like, a team like this, you've got to take risks. And you know what? Some of those risks are going to fail. Like, Madison Bumgarner was a terrible signing for this team. They paid Madison Bumgarner over $20 million this year.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't pitch at all. Like,
he's their highest player.
He's not even on their team anymore. Right. So, like, they went out there, they got aggressive. They made some moves. They made some mistakes, but they also hit on some of them. And so I think it just goes to show, like, a lot of people say that teams like this, teams like the Pirates, teams like the Diamondbacks, you can't afford to make mistakes. Like, a lot of people kind of use that argument, like the Dodgers and the Yankees, they can afford to make a mistake, right? The Pirates can't afford to make one. They can. You just gotta make less mistakes than you do good things. And the Diamondbacks made more good decisions, and they developed their players better. Like I said, they made some mistakes with this team, big time mistakes. I'm sure they would have liked to spend that $20 million another way, but it was a mistake they made. It was a big mistake they made, and they were able to overcome it.
I think you make a good point there too about the mistakes, just to kind of tie in there. It's one thing I talked about. Like payroll just allows you to make more mistakes than other people is kind of how I look at it for the most part. But yeah, like it's not like the Pirates have to be perfect or they can never get there. I mean, even like in the years that they were in the playoffs, like they weren't perfect. They hit on a lot of free agents and trades, like that helped them, right? But like they weren't perfect. Um, but I think like what you talk about with the Diamondbacks, it makes a whole lot of sense. Like even looking back at that year, they lost a lot of games we're talking about. Like look at their bullpen. Look at the rotation. Here's their ERAs. Kelly 4.44, Bumgarner 4.67, Gallen 4.30, Wider 4.35, and Luke Weaver 4.25. Like it wasn't a terrible bullpen. Wasn't a terrible rotation that we're talking about. Like we look at the Pirates and they're doing bad. Think about that rotation they had. I mean, it was just trash. So it's kind of to your point too, Jim, like you're talking about. It's not as if the Diamondbacks tanked. Like they did attempt. It was just a bad team. And you know what? Sometimes you just have bad teams. Just because you have a bad team doesn't mean you are tanking. So like I want to put that out there too. Like there's a difference between tanking and being bad. The Diamondbacks were just bad. And it is what it is. They call it a day. The Bumgarner was just a terrible signing, which honestly, most of us thought like that was bad to begin with. But they spent money. Like they did attempt. They did try to. It just didn't work out. I mean, kudos for them trying. It just wasn't smart. So they retooled. I mean, they were afforded the opportunity to pick higher in the draft, get better prospects in doing so. But like you said, Jim, they're not even using those guys yet. They're not even here, which is what kind of makes this interesting. And maybe that was their mindset, like to Tyler's point. You're going into this offseason. You already see the Dodgers. You saw what the Padres did. I mean, maybe they looked at it as if like this was their Pirates, what we thought 2023 could be, right? It's like we're getting there. We're not going to get these two juggernauts by any means, but we're coming there. We have this pipeline coming. We're not there yet. This is the time to get good. And they just kind of limped in, and here they are. Like they were good enough to do so. But right, like I look at this and like next year is kind of like that year. I mean, if you're looking at it, the Padres maybe falling apart, now they have this team that's already got to the World Series. Their prospects are coming up. I mean, the playoffs afford them some more payroll possibly next year. Like there might be some players in free agency now, and they're even better. So you don't have to tank. I think that's what you're kind of getting to here, Jim. You don't have to tank. Even like the Rangers didn't tank when they lost 100 games as well. They had a pretty decent payroll. They just weren't good. And then what did they do after? They spent money and they got much better. And then the trade deadline came this year and they ensured they were better. And like they're a beast of a team right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just, you had the Diamondbacks, they've got that young core, right? They had Marte, they had Christian Walker already, right? You call up Corbin Carroll, you call up Alec Thomas, you called up Geraldo Perdomo, and then you just like look and see where your gaps are, and they plugged those. Like they made the move for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Gabby Moreno. They signed Evan Longoria in the offseason, and Evan Longoria is not the same guy that he used to be, right? But he's still he's a pro. Like Evan Longoria is a pro. So you put him at third base. He's a guy with a ton of experience, a lot of postseason experience. Not someone who's going to, just not be able to perform in the postseason. So you bring a guy like that in. Who else did they bring in? I think that was
the deadline.
Yeah, they bring in Paul Sewald too. So like they're plugging in these gaps that they have kind of throughout their lineup with veterans, and they did it a myriad of ways, right? Like Gabby Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel, they got in a trade. Evan Longoria, they signed too. Yeah, so like they plugged these holes with guys, and they did it using different ways.
they made some trades and they worked out. Like give them credit for that. You talked about the Gurriel Moreno, right? With Varsho. I mean, Varsho is like who we comped Endy to. Varsho, a really good player. They made that deal. I mean, Varsho didn't have the greatest season in Toronto. Like it worked out for the Diamondbacks. The Zach Gallen deal, like that worked out really well for them. Not that Jazz is like a terrible player, but Zach Gallen has definitely been a better player than Jazz has. And what the Diamondbacks needed and such, that's really worked out for them. So like they've been doing things to get better and they have worked out for them also. So that's what we're talking about. Like, is Cherington going to make the trade to do to get better, right? Or is he going to be able to add these pieces? Like, is he going to be able to make this team better? In that sense, because like you mentioned, there were players there. Like Reynolds was already here, Hayes was already here. Like there was guys that are already here, much like the Diamondbacks to a degree, like through the rebuild. But like what the Pirates have right now is their guys are coming up already, where the Diamondbacks aren't even here yet.
Or the Diamondbacks also have had some guys come up and immediately contribute, which always helps, because when you're paying somebody the league minimum, right, and he's a near MVP candidate like Corbin Carroll is, or you're paying somebody the league minimum and he's one of the best catchers in the game, that helps you a whole lot, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to go and plug those other holes. So I think that's kind of where the Pirates sit right now, is they need these young guys to come up and not just be, they can't just be contributors. Like they've got to be a main part of this team. And, we always kind of go back to, like the good Pirates teams of the 20 teens. And they had some young guys who came up and immediately contributed. They had a good core of players, but they had some young guys who were really good. Garrett Cole, Jameson Taillon, Pedro Alvarez coming up, even like Starling Marte. Like you had some young guys who immediately contributed, and that's what you saw with the Diamondbacks this year. And when you're able to do that and have those rookies just hit the ground running, it opens up so many possibilities for you, because they don't cost anything. So you can use that money that you have to go out there and plug some other holes, and you don't have to worry about those rookies. Whereas the Pirates are in a position right now where none of their young guys have hit the ground running, like none of them. So can the 2024 Pirates emulate the Diamondbacks? They can, but those young guys are going to have to take a giant step forward.
For sure.
Well, just to add to that real quick. We talked a lot about Corbin Carroll when we're discussing Pirates prospects and coming up late in the year, and that window that Major League Baseball teams do have of calling them up and, as Jim said, letting them hit the ground running. We saw that with Corbin Carroll. We saw pretty much close to a full year from Alec Thomas, who is contributing pretty significantly to the postseason, but
in the playoffs, yeah.
But to be fair, I'm not going to blow smoke up everybody's butt. He had a bad year. He had a bad year the year before that. But we're seeing them call these guys up so that they are actually ready to compete much earlier than we're seeing what the Pirates have done, where it's, we're looking a year out from when they're called up. These other teams, and especially the Diamondbacks at this point, they're calling them up maybe a year early so that they're ready to go immediately when they're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just was give me this opportunity to say I just love the way a lot of teams are like now using that, right? They're calling up their guys, whatever the date ends up being, like the August 25th, right? So they're still rookie eligible the next year, but it's like we're going to sneak in these at bats at the end of the year to get you some MLB experience in time. So that way, when day one's here next year, you can still be rookie eligible. We can get the incentives. You can get the incentives, right? Like we're pushing your time up, so that curve starts early. So that time you're here next year, you are a dude. Hopefully by midsummer.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to, like, I will absolutely get on the Pirates for holding guys down in the minors too long. I think that's something that they've been doing for quite some time now. But I'll also say, like, these guys the Diamondbacks called up were really ready, and they developed so nicely. Like, you're talking about Corbin Carroll, a high school bat from 2019 draft. He played a total of 142 minor league games. Like, that's it. Like, that's all he did as a high school draft pick. And you call him up, and he immediately is a superstar. Like, the Diamondbacks were able, the Diamondbacks were able to like find this talent, develop him with very minimal playing time. Corbin Carroll had injury issues for years. He missed he didn't play in 2020. He played 7 games in 2021 before he tore his rotator cuff. He like some of his labrum, shoulder, whatever it was. Like, the dude hardly played in the minors. Yet you call him up at age 21, and he ends up being like this. Gabby Moreno the same way, obviously developed by Toronto, but again, like someone who moved through that system really, really quickly. And then by the time the Diamondbacks got a hold of him, he was already ready for the majors at age 23. You know, he debuted in Toronto last year at age 22. Again, another catcher. He played 256 games in the minor leagues. So you're just talking about guys who just developed really nicely and really quick, and we just haven't seen that with the Pirates. Like, when was the last time the Pirates had a high schooler who just breezed through the system like that?
Wasn't Andrew McCutchen.
Like, it didn't even, not even breezing. Like,
it was McCutchen. Yeah, but they also kept McCutchen in AAA for 3 years when he was ready 2 years early. McCutchen would have 350 homers right now if he was called up on time.
What I was going to say, though, like, we talk about Ketel Marte, and the Diamondbacks seem to have bet on talent. And we've talked about that with the Pirates a lot. Maybe here and there, they haven't really just bought into the talent and just let it ride. The Diamondbacks feel at this point, and I know I've said it feels like they've caught lightning in a bottle here, but to an extent, they have bet on the talent of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm glad you brought up the Marte trade. Was that Haniger?
The Ketel Marte trade with Seattle? That was Taijuan Walker.
Oh, that's
Taijuan Walker came with.
But there were many times they could have given up on him.
Haniger and Segura were both part of that trade.
That's right, Segura. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because we're talking about the trades and how the Diamondbacks have like been making out on these trades. That's another one. Like, they've been winning trades. I know that was a while ago, but again, that's how they got Marte to get to that position, which goes back to what we talked about. They didn't never tank. They just weren't good. But like Marte, another win for them.
But they could have given up on him so many times. He had the one good year, and then he was
He had a pretty rough.
He had a pretty rough stretch.
Like that 2020 season, the short season, he was bad. He really wasn't that great last year either. But 2021, he was excellent. It's like every other year. 2019, he was excellent. 2021, he was excellent. 2023, he was really good.
So ever since they got rid of Towers and Dave Stewart, the Diamondbacks have been making some good deals.
Yeah, and like I said, they've just made really good deals. But at the same time, they've made mistakes, and they've shown that you can overcome those mistakes just by hitting on most and scouting and drafting really well. Like Brandon Pfaadt, like, let's talk about him. First round pick, but the dude's out of an Atlantic Sun school. I don't even think Bellarmine was Division I when Brandon Pfaadt was there. They like just recently made the jump. So they drafted basically a D2 pitcher. And now he's winning game 7s for the Diamondbacks.
Pitching against the best postseason pitcher in MLB history.
Yeah. So it's just like it's the scouting, it's the developing. They've just been really good at developing homegrown talent and then hitting on the trades that they've made.
Can we just talk about why Jim just brought up Bellarmine College? Where's that located?
No. It was more.
Where is that located, Jim?
Bellarmine's in Louisville.
Mm.
But it was more of just a matter of like Brandon Pfaadt came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, let's just mention.
But don't you have a story about him though too? Or no?
I play softball with his brother.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. That's all I had. Tyler was the one who brought that up.
Well, like you brought up Bellarmine, I'm like, good Lord, we're doing Louisville again.
I didn't say
Absolutely.
anything about Louisville. You were the one who made sure I had to
You
say it.
brought up a college in Louisville.
I wasn't gonna say it was from
You knew
Louisville.
what you were doing, Jim.
You knew. He knew.
Well, I guess we've been talking about Arizona for a while, right? In this sense. I mean, let's kind of talk about the Pirates. Like what Arizona has done, we've all talked about and discussed. We talked about like it's certainly like the pitching, right? They have two really, really good dudes that are pitching for them. They have a really, really strong bullpen. The lineup's a little behind, but it's good enough. So again, for those that are hopeful and for all the yeses at the beginning of the show, can the Pirates be the 2023 Diamondbacks in 2024? I mean, like, I guess let's just start out. Like Jim said, you don't have to squint too hard. Can they? I think they could, right? But like, how do you, I mean, like that? We've been talking about the bullpen as their strength so far. There's certainly some guys that are intriguing. Let's go that route, right? I don't think it's at the Diamondbacks level, but like it could. I think honestly, like the Diamondbacks is like the best case scenario for the Pirates. They kind of line up in that sense. Like the bullpen's stronger. They would have to get really, really good. And then like when you look at the rotation, we've discussed Keller. Keller could definitely be one of your guys in the postseason you rely on. They have Paul Skeens. I know a lot rides on him, but like, could you see a Skeens Keller 1-2 combination that you're talking about next year? Like, could the Pirates have this type of pitching next year?
A lot rides on Paul Skeens. Like they desperately need him. And it also, I think they got to lean on like either Oviedo's got to be another guy or they've got to bring in somebody who you can count on in those postseason spots. And there's more than one way to do that. One really good thing about like if you're a competitive team and your buyers at the trade deadline, you can typically find a good starting pitcher who's a rental at the trade deadline who can benefit you in the postseason. So that's another way that, if the Pirates can build a good enough rotation to basically get them through 120 games, let's call it, where that they're still in it, and then they can add that other piece to kind of put them over the edge and help them in the postseason at the deadline. That's another route that they can go because there's going to be plenty of starting pitchers on expiring deals that you can pick up somewhat cheap. Think like J.A. Happ, right? Like deals like that are available to pretty much everybody.
If this team would have been in this new wildcard format in 2015, they would have ran the table.
It would have been good. But I mean, like Jordan Montgomery fits that mold for the Rangers,
Yes.
and he's been such a huge contributor during this postseason. If the Rangers didn't make that trade for Jordan Montgomery, they're not where they are right now. And a lot of other teams passed on him. Like the Orioles were a team where like the Orioles really could have benefited from having Jordan Montgomery this year, but they passed. They didn't really add anybody. Who got knocked out in the first round? The Orioles. Who's still here in the World Series? The team that made the moves at the deadline to make their team better.
So if the question is, do I think that the Pirates could emulate the Diamondbacks this year? I really do think they could win 84 games next year. I think that should probably be the goal. Do I think they have enough to get to the World Series like the Diamondbacks have done? I just can't see it. Even if I'll ignore Paul Skeens in general, I do think if I look at this rotation and what the Diamondbacks have done, I think that Mitch Keller could be a Zach Gallen type, and I think Johan Oviedo could be the Merrill Kelly type. Like those are two guys I think you could lean on a little bit. And if we've seen it before, if Oviedo is hot, he's really, really good. And that's what Merrill Kelly is doing. So I think they have the guys to do it. I think that this is more of an aberration than it's like a thing that you can really lean on. Granted, Paul Skeens added into it. It might be a different story, and that's hoping Paul Skeens is what we hope he will be.
No, I think that's fair because again, this kind of goes to the whole tone of the episode. I don't think anyone was looking at the Diamondbacks saying the Diamondbacks could do this, right? But here they are. So, like, you're right. Like, can the Pirates be the Diamondbacks? You can see it, but can the Pirates be the World Series? I don't see it. But again, like, I don't see the Diamondbacks being that either. That's why baseball is fun and glorious, right? Like, that's what makes the sport. And that's why playoffs are a whole different beast. So you're right there. I'm not out here talking like the Pirates going to be the World Series next year. I don't see that like almost any scenario. I don't care how hard you squint. I can't see that. It's possible. But I think you're right. You know, like Oviedo has something there. I think he surprised all three of us for sure this year. And I'm willing to like look out for him to take another step next year. You know, we see him at his good, we see him at his worst. They're extremes, but like you said, Tyler, when he's on, he's on. So if he can like mitigate the bad stuff and continue to get better and be consistently better and good, I mean, he can hands down win you games. And Mitch Keller, like we've seen what he's turned into. And if Paul Skeens is what as advertised and he can be like the ace, right? That dude that Keller follows and then like maybe an Oviedo follows. Yeah, that's three really strong guys. That's what the Diamondbacks had, right? Kelly, Gallen, and Fott. The bullpen, David Bednar. I mean, Sewald went like 12 scoreless innings this postseason. I mean,
yeah,
you can see David Bednar doing that, right? I don't think anybody would be shocked if that happened. If Holderman takes a step, Majinski, you know, they add some guys like the bullpen. It's not there. Like, I'm not ready to crown them this bullpen that the Diamondbacks have, but like you can see it. The bats, though, so many question marks. I mean, is O'Neill Cruz going to be that guy? Is Brian Hayes like what he's doing legit? Right? All the rookies, all the young bucks, they have to take steps forward. I feel like the offense is where the Diamondbacks lack on. The Pirates are not close to that yet.
But they could.
Just, yeah. I mean, real quick too, just some quick numbers because I actually disagree with you on the bullpen. Like, I don't think the Diamondbacks bullpen is that good. Like, they're just pitching really well right now.
It is right now.
The Diamondbacks ranked 24th this year in bullpen WAR. The Pirates were 11th. Diamondbacks 4.22 ERA. Pirates were 4.27. Pirates struck out more. They walked a little bit more. But I mean, the Pirates bullpen was better than the Diamondbacks this year. So like I disagree with you on that. Like and you, like you look at what the Diamondbacks are doing, and you've seen like the Pirates have put games together like that. Like when they utilize these the last 2 months of the year, the bullpen carried them through it. And they actually finished those 2 months with a winning record. So I think the bullpen's there. Like,
okay, I just want to point this out though.
David Bednar is better than
this
Paul
isn't to take away what you're saying, but they made a trade for Sewald to improve that bullpen, and he was terrible in the regular season. But now, come postseason, he's been what they traded for. So I think that's a little bit of a difference. That's all I'm kind of getting at. He's the guy they traded for, but in the regular season, he was terrible.
I also think that goes back to what I said earlier about them catching lightning in a bottle. I think we're asking for a lot.
Well, I think that's what this kind of comes down to. Like, if you're asking, and Kenny brings this up, right? You know, the 2023 Diamondbacks aren't a blueprint. They're a blueprint if like you want to get into the playoffs and just see what happens, right? Like that's basically what happened here. They got into the playoffs barely, and they got hot, and that's sometimes all it takes. But the thing is it's tough to do that. You know, it's a lot easier to get hot when you have constructed a really good baseball team. This year just was weird, and like the Braves didn't do anything. The Dodgers didn't do anything. The Rays, Orioles didn't do anything. These teams who did construct really good teams, they all got beat by lesser opponents. And like that's just baseball for you, right? Like anything could happen. But I think if you're counting on like, hey, let's win 84 games and we can do what the Diamondbacks do, like technically can you? Yeah. But that shouldn't be what you're striving for.
I think
That's the best way
relying
to put
on
it.
that is a very, very like bad thing to do.
Yeah, you should be shooting for more than 84 wins. Like you should want to have a 90 win team.
Yeah. I think your floor should be 84.
Let's
Yeah,
get them
like if everything
projections
goes
going.
wrong. If everything goes wrong, you're winning 84
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, no, good points. Good points. Like this should not be the blueprint, right? You don't look at the Diamondbacks and say this is the formula for the Pirates next year. But I think just what it is the Pirates could be the Diamondbacks next year. That also shouldn't be the ceiling. Like the Pirates shouldn't say, hey, we've created the 2023 Diamondbacks, so we don't need to do any more moves, which I think is maybe what Tyler was leaning towards at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
right?
I just didn't know how
Like,
to say words in my.
I don't think
before
Cherington
work.
should go out and say, I'm going to build the 2023 Diamondbacks. But
He might.
by no means do I think like
Yeah, he
they
might say that
can't.
actually.
He might say that.
That
He'll
would be a
like,
problem.
Our goal is to win
Like
84 games this year.
he legitimately said like we're projected to be a fourth place team.
I know. So I guess
Like, he might say that.
to bring it full circle to answer a question in that manner, the goal shouldn't be the Diamondbacks, and you shouldn't stop building once you think you've achieved Diamondbacks territory. I think there's a lot of question marks on this team, though. And because of the question marks, you could see them being the Diamondbacks next year. But if those question marks turn to answers, like they need to be better than what the Diamondbacks are.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at this a different way. Like what the Diamondbacks are doing right now is just proof that you shouldn't just give up 4 years of your organization. Like try to win all the time.
Thank you,
like,
Jim.
Like if an 84 win team can make the playoffs and go to the World Series, then like what are you doing just trying to lose ever? Like
Also,
just try to win games. Build a good baseball team consistently.
Jim, just if you screw up a trade every now and then, like you don't have to rebuild after that.
No, you don't have to take.
You
don't
can
have to
just
trade.
maybe try.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We accidentally traded Austin Meadows and Tyler Glass now. We have to tear the entire thing down now. No, you don't. Go out there and get them back. Like, but with different names. Like that's all you got. Like it's not that you don't have to tank. You don't have to bottom.
Sorry, guys. The prior GM traded Austin Meadows and Tyler Glass. Now we'll see you in 2024.
Yeah, like
maybe
that's stupid. It's like this just proves to you that if you can just try to be good. And
granted,
like anything can happen.
They are different. There's different rules now. Like there's more teams involved. But
yeah. So like try to be good.
Yeah, they could have tried a lot harder this year.
They knew what the rules were going into this season.
Yes.
So like they could have done this. They could have done this year. And you're not convincing me otherwise.
They were 20-8, damn it.
Right.
The Pirates won 76. The Diamondbacks won 84. Could you not find an 8-game swing in trying this year? To Jim's point, like there's that potential. I'm not saying it was like a guaranteed, right? But when they were 20-8, if you tried,
if you just didn't employ a catcher,
maybe they could have been the Diamondbacks this year. Because you know what?
Could not hit a damn baseball, DiNardo.
The Pirates were hot. I mean, relatively speaking, the Pirates were hot toward the end of the year. They were playing good baseball. What if they also had better players to complement the players they currently had on the team because they tried? I think it's fair. The Pirates could potentially have been the Diamondbacks this year.
Problem is that there's a bunch of less brain cells than we have, which I don't have very many, who will go out there and tell us that if they would have had O'Neal Cruz, they would have won 84 games.
It hurts. It hurts.
Sure.
Doesn't help.
Doesn't help, but like,
But without
I
him,
think if O'Neal Cruz doesn't get hurt, they're maybe still in a position where in July you could make improvements to the team. Like I don't know if they bottom out quite like they do in the summertime with O'Neal Cruz there. So I think you could say like O'Neal Cruz specifically himself isn't going to contribute to an 8-game swing. That's not going to happen. But O'Neal Cruz could contribute to a 4-game swing. And then with a 4-game swing, you go, you know what? Maybe we should go find 4 more games out there somewhere.
Yeah, like maybe we hang on to Rich Hill.
No, that wouldn't have
maybe
worked.
get
Though.
better than Richard.
But
yeah, but you get the point, right? Like you instead of not trying to get better halfway through the season, you do try to get better.
You kept
you're
Carlos.
not using an opener 3 out of 5 days.
Yeah,
right.
You kept Carlos Santana, right? You added a few more pieces, and you found those 4 wins. Well, you kept the wins that you had, and you found some more.
Yep.
And I mean, to be fair to Ben Cherington, and this is the only time I'll ever like give him a little bit of defense. The Pirates did deal with some injuries that not many teams deal with. Like their rotation was done by the beginning of the year.
But that's not a unique thing to the Pirates.
It's not, but
it happens everywhere.
Look at
like
Velasquez down, Burrow down, Brubaker down. Like that's 3 arms right there. Done.
Every team above the Pirates in the standings had the same problem.
The entire, but nobody's losing O'Neal Cruz, and we don't even know what he is.
That's true. Who knows? Like we don't even know what we missed with O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah, he could have sucked. We don't know.
That's true.
That's the most frustrating part, I think, is that we still just don't know.
Yep. And we talked about this last week, I think, or on Starbucks this morning, where this offseason, like we're going to be able to see some tangible things that happen. Like there's going to be actual moves of adding players, but the biggest things that this team needs to do is like the players on the team need to get better. And that's something that we're not going to know. We're not going to know if that's true until next year.
Yep. It is kind of what stinks. Like there's just so many question marks on this team. That's what hurts right now. You're like, you really don't want to go into 2024 with all the question marks that this team has. And that's what they're doing. Now you can absolutely be hopeful and rational as well, not thinking every player is still going to be terrible. Like I said, mentioned before, like I'm sure 2 of them will hit and become better at least, right? I mean, like the odds are someone is going to get better than we were last year. But that's just kind of the problem. Like there's still a lot of question marks and it's still just a lot of variance. Like this team could be good. Maybe we talk about, could they be the Diamondbacks? Like they could be an 84+ win team. But I don't know. Like the players could just be bad still. And maybe they didn't develop and they're like a 70-win team. Like that could happen. I think
could just not take a step
than an
forward.
84 win, but like that could happen. And I think it ultimately depends too on like what they do in free agency. Like, do they go all out there and build? You need arms. And again, like going to the Rangers, I'm not asking them to go out and get like all the top studs, but the Rangers just added arm after arm after arm this year. And then the World Series. Pirates have 2 pitchers in September in the rotation. 2. They need arms.
So Diamondbacks, though.
Not in September.
I mean, like
in October, where you're allowed to.
They were kind of arms.
I mean, Zach Allen was really, really good this year.
He was.
And Merrill Kelly was really, really good this year. So they had like 2 really good starters.
Yeah.
Really the entire season. Allen faltered a little bit down the stretch. Yeah, the rest of the rotation was just plug and play. Like they didn't have anybody there.
And I guess that's an improvement over what the Pirates dealt with, but
they actually had a guy take the ball and go past the first inning.
Well, I mean, the Pirates did at some points.
And they had a
Until
guy step
Jackson
up
did.
when it matters. Like Brandon Pfaadt stepping up was obviously huge for them. Without him, they're not where they're at right now. And that's not somebody that going into the postseason you would have thought you could have relied on.
But either way, I think we're all on the same page. Like, this is not a blueprint to follow. You can't do this. This is not a simulation where you end up with 84 wins if everything goes correctly, and then somehow you end up catching fire. This is not similar to the Rays when they make the World Series that everybody liked to count on before. The Rays had some really good baseball players, and they develop really well. They coach really well. This is different.
And so I guess to kind of touch real quick on the other end, because we haven't talked to them, but like that was the big thing. Like the Rangers and the Diamondbacks all lost 100 games a few years ago. So can't the Pirates be in the World Series, next year? And again, we're talking about the Rangers coming off a 100-loss season. Says Corey Seager, you're on our team. Like they didn't have to sit back and say, well, we were a 100-loss team, so we need to take 2 more years till we can even entertain signing people. The Rangers said 100 losses is unacceptable, so we're going to be good. And they added Corey Seager, right? And like Vinny talked about today, or just right now, I should say, this in this offseason, what they did with the arms and such. I mean, they willed themselves to be good. Like that's unacceptable. We're gonna be good. Now, granted, again, I'm not telling you the Pirates have to spend $300 million on a contract to sign somebody and such, right? But this is kind of what we're talking about. Like the Pirates were just comfortable in that we're just going to be bottom out for a while until we're absolutely there. And then we're going to add, like they could have added this year. And if it didn't work out this year, it's fine because that person's still here next year when they're going to be good as well. But at least you attempted this year to do something. So, yeah, like that's what's been kind of frustrating. But again, also like that's why I don't want to compare the Pirates into the Rangers aspect. And that's why we really haven't. For those like, the Rangers were a 100-loss team too. Look what the Rangers did. Marcus Semien, right? Corey Seager. They had DeGrom, Max Scherzer, Jordan Montgomery, Heaney. Who am I missing on the staff? Oh, Eovaldi.
Eovaldi, yeah.
So it's just like, I mean, arm after arm after arm. The Pirates have to have arms. They're going to have to go out there in free agency and build on this team if they want, again, not to not accept the Diamondbacks and Will in there, but to be a good team and ensure that they're in the playoffs next year. Hedges. The Rangers did add Hedges.
Hey, another arm. They added that arm.
Oh, man. He had more innings pitched in the regular season than he had postseason plate appearances.
Good for him, though.
Yeah, I mean, nothing like against him personally in that sense. Like, yeah, good for him. It's just,
it's funny.
We've said it all.
Yeah. I think we've said enough about Austin Hedges on this podcast. I don't ever want to talk about him again.
We will next.
Until they sign him again next.
So Cody brings this point up, and this is something that I wasn't aware of, but he says, are we rooting for the Diamondbacks so Hedges doesn't get a ring?
Yes.
So here's the thing.
Yes.
If the Diamondbacks win the
Those are the
World
Diamondbacks.
Series, do you know who does get a ring? Sebi Zavala. The guy who hurt O'Neal Cruz and then stood over him and yelled at him. And then in his press conference said, well, I'll forget about this tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't care.
We didn't forget tomorrow.
I did. We're good.
You didn't forget.
I didn't, but we're good.
Yeah. I'd rather have Austin Hedges get a ring.
He did not hurt him personally. O'Neal Cruz doesn't know how to slide.
No, it was a terrible slide by O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah, like Austin Hedges has personally offended me. Like he made my life miserable for 3 months.
But that wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault that he was bad.
I don't care.
Let me put this perspective in there, because I get all that. But this isn't the Zavala versus Austin Hedges World Series. Like, come on, stop it.
I mean,
I
Zavala's
don't
not even
care
on the
about
postseason.
either of them two. Period. What the ring will get, whatever.
I don't
Like,
want Austin Hedges to win anything.
I don't care. He's not even. He's getting a participation.
I don't
trophy.
care. I don't want him to get anything.
Yeah,
I don't care enough
I
about
don't
Austin
care.
Hedges that it matters for this World Series.
No, I don't want people to be able to. Oh, look at how much catching matters. Blah, 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 blah.
But
They
he
already
also
are.
played. Like,
So again,
he
it's
also
not going to
hasn't
matter.
even played. So like,
But
if
they
they're
will.
saying
People
that,
are dumb.
but they're just doing that to make you upset. Like they're
yeah.
no one's actually seriously thinking Austin Hedges has anything to do with what the Rangers are doing.
But the people do make me upset. So I got to do what I got to do here.
You just need
Just
to
put on
ignore
JT.
the trolls, Tyler.
I'm not good at that.
Neither
This is
am I.
why I'm off Twitter anymore.
DiNardo's always arguing with like
It's random.
real Bobby 187342987 created account October 23rd, 2023. He's got one follower. DiNardo
Oh, we're
just
going in.
I am
goes after people
personally, I am more offended by Austin Hedges telling us we're all stupid for not understanding catching than a guy that just like stood there while O'Neal Cruz didn't know how to slide.
I think we've talked
I don't
about
care
Austin
either way.
Hedges enough, to be honest.
I
We
don't care
have,
either way.
but
I'm not rooting against any team because of those two losers. And one
Can
of
I
the
be
losers is going to
honest?
have to get. I mean, I'm not going to call them losers, but regardless, like one of them two are going to have to get a World Series ring. But like, who cares?
But can I be honest here?
Huh?
I'm on the same page as most baseball fans. I don't care about this World Series. I really don't.
But
This
you
is
also
the-
didn't care about any game prior to this World Series. If
no,
it was
but like
Dodgers,
this is the least interesting World Series I can remember.
if it was like Braves, Orioles, you wouldn't care.
I don't know a single Rangers or Diamondbacks fan.
So
I just
That's
have
because you live in rural Ohio and you
I
haven't
know, but
left
at
your
the
street in 7 years.
I haven't lived here 7 years.
You haven't left your county in months.
No, I did. I left it this month to get an oil change.
Okay.
he just said this month.
Yeah, it was around my birthday. It was like 3
in
days
the
later.
most serious manner.
For Tyler's birthday, he left his county.
No, it was like September
For an oil
23rd. I went and got an oil change, and they told me I had a nail in my tire.
Okay,
$40
you
for that.
have to leave your county to get an oil change. We're talking rural Ohio. You have to
Correct.
leave your county in order to
Correct.
get an oil change,
Yes.
and that's why you left your county.
Yes.
And that's why you don't know any Rangers or Diamondbacks fans.
Correct.
To be real though,
mean-
there actually aren't any.
no, there's
Diamondbacks
none.
fans.
I don't know any Diamondbacks.
Because no one actually is from Phoenix. Like everyone who lives in Phoenix moved to Phoenix from somewhere else, so they're a fan of somebody else. There, not a single person has ever actually been born in Phoenix.
Like if I have to pick if I have
Jim
to
has
pick a
the
team here,
stats.
I actually probably would pick the Diamondbacks just because they beat the Yankees the one year, and it made me feel good when I was like 8.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so I'll root for the Diamondbacks.
I'm rooting
even
for the
though-
Rangers.
Either way, I don't want either team to be in the World Series because I want big market teams to be in so that nobody has this little brain fog where they think that teams that are small.
What are the
markets will win.
Rangers? They're
They're-
not like big market at all.
Dallas is like Dallas Fort Worth is like the 4th largest metro in the United States.
No, I meant I don't want small market teams. So, well, brain's not working.
The Texas Rangers play in the largest market where there's only
Okay.
one team.
You guys put me in a pickle here.
All right, go to bed, Tyler. It's already
Yeah, I don't know who I'm going to root for.
10:15. I'm rooting for the Rangers because I mean
We'll see who I bet on Game 7.
there's a pretty complete team. I enjoy watching them. They're fun, and I just think they're going to beat the Diamondbacks. But I thought the same thing with the Phillies too. So
Yeah, I don't know who I'm rooting for. I don't know if I'm rooting for anybody. I'm just going to hope that they're good baseball games. Like give me games. Give me 7 games. And I'll be happy.
yeah, I'll take that.
Regardless.
I'm going to root for whoever I bet on whichever night it is.
There you
That's
go.
fair.
Okay.
Well, is that it? We talked for an hour 9 about the Pirates and Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I think that's good.
We're so good. There's nothing to talk about. We talked for an hour and 9
That's
minutes.
true. 4 hours ago, you were like, "What are we talking about tonight?" And I was like, "Let's talk about this." This was all my idea.
Yeah. Well, let's just ignore that whole thing. What's next week?
The guy who couldn't even get into the actual stream was the brains
Semantics.
behind this.
Hey, I'm
DiNardo.
not my fault.
Oh, yeah, my bad. It was not an hour 9. It was 69 minutes, as Kenny says.
Well, now we got to get off because it's 70 minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
let's do
well, I'm just out here trying to promo next week, but that's cool.
We'll say it. I was going to do it, but go ahead, Tyler.
No, that's cool. You do it.
No, go ahead.
No. You are gonna do
Fanboys
it.
next week.
Thank you,
Fanboys
Jeff.
next week, Wednesday night, 9:00 ish. Fanboys. So be ready for that.
For real,
There you go.
this time.
I don't even know if we promoted it last time.
No, I said it on Starbucks this past Monday. But it didn't happen clearly tonight. But next week for sure, Wednesday, look out. We'll definitely have it. But something we've been kind of talking about too, like this often, like there's a lot coming down the pipe that we'll be releasing here in waves. So next week though is the Fanboys. We'll see you then. Tomorrow, Jim, cardboard.
Yep.
Open up some packs tomorrow
I haven't
and Saturday.
Haven't opened them yet, so can't tell you if it's good or not.
It's terrible. Actually, it's really good. It's gonna be really good. So
Yeah,
you should
good
tune
vibes.
in and watch. All right. We'll see you then, I guess. Bye-bye.
Peace out, Scouts.
See you guys.
Hey, you all. Thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.